Please continue to enjoy your lunch, but in the interest of time, we will commence with the program. Just a little bit of trivia. As some of you in the room know, this is the Chamber's centennial year. We were established in October of 1919. So my colleague Valerie Blake has been doing a little research for various points of interest, and she came up with something that I thought was relevant for today. So the newly elected governor in New Hampshire in 1919 was John Bartlett, and he was a descendant of Josiah Bartlett, familiar name to many in this room. He was the 65th governor of New Hampshire. He hailed from Portsmouth. He was a teacher, a high school principal, a lawyer, and an author. During his governorship, he adopted the executive budget process, enacted a law to allow New Hampshire cities the right to acquire and operate interurban street railways and trams, and he signed a law naming the purple lilac the state flower. So you have some pretty big shoes to fill there, Governor Sununu. To welcome you on behalf of Lincoln Financial and to introduce the governor, I would like to invite Pam Telfer. She is Vice President, Product Compliance for Lincoln Financial Group. So, Pam.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Lincoln Financial, and I'd like to just spend a minute or two sharing some information about the governor that you may or may not know. Among Chris's accomplishments during his first term, he delivered a balanced state budget with no new taxes or fees and established full-day kindergarten. Additionally, Governor Sununu provided property tax relief by returning $65 million to cities and towns for roads, bridges, safer schools, and he also invested $275 million in clean water projects. He expanded educational opportunities for students and signed job-creating business tax cuts into law. Governor Sununu's leadership has garnered a number of awards, including the New Futures 2017 President's Award for championing policies that improve the health and wellness of all Granite Staters. He is one of only 5 governors honored by AARP with their Capital Caregiver 2017 award, and he received CASA's 2018 John McDermott Champion of Children Award. In 2018, Chris announced the nationwide launch of his very important recovery-friendly workplace initiative to engage employers and empower workplaces to provide support for people recovering from substance use disorder. Before being elected governor in 2016, Chris served 3 terms on the New Hampshire Executive Council, representing 32 cities and towns in Rockingham and Hillsborough counties. In 2010, Chris led a group of investors in the buyout of Waterville Valley Resort, where he worked as a CEO and was in charge of an expansion of the ski resort done in cooperation with the U.S. Forest Service. As an environmental engineer, Chris worked for 10 years cleaning up hazardous waste sites across the country. Chris, as you know, is a graduate of MIT with a Bachelor of Science in Civil and Environmental Engineering. So please join me in welcoming Governor Sununu.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Is this thing on? Good morning. Good afternoon. What is it? We're in the afternoon. The life of a governor right there. It's like sometimes all 24 hours can be a blur. Well, this is great. How much time do we have? Half hour. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So what I thought I would do is very casual. I thought I'd give a little bit of a kind of a state of the state, where we are. Obviously, a lot of folks are talking about the budget, a lot of the priorities, whether it's taxes or mental health or the opioid crisis or whatever it might be. We can talk a little bit about that. And then, as Tim said, I'd love to just open up for questions. I always find that's kind of the best, ability to have real discussion, especially to find out what's really happening at the local level. So let's take a couple steps back. I guess to start in New Hampshire, things are really good. Let's start there. It is a great time to be in New Hampshire. It's a great time to be in business here. It's a great time to be a family here. We really spent the first 2-year term, and yes, it's a 2-year term. I'm like me and Phil Scott in Vermont, the only 2 governors that have to get elected every 2 years. Oh Lord, it stinks. I'm not going to lie to you. Great process. Love the system. As governor, it stinks. that you have to campaign every couple of years. But we really spent that first term trying to create an environment, right? Creating an infrastructure that didn't just get us to the next election. That's typically how folks do it here, but we have a very different philosophy. It's about creating infrastructure and systems that will work 5 and 10 and 20 years down the road. That's really the long term, and you can't run the government like a business. I would love to, but you can't do that, nor should you, right? Because it's not my money, it's not the legislator's money, it is your money, it is taxpayer dollars. It requires a little bit of a pause, it requires some checks and balances. But what you can do is bring some business philosophies in, right? In terms of how to spend the money, right? What is one-time spending? What are your long-term operational revenues that you can truly count on to invest in your programs, right? Where are the true infrastructure needs? Are you challenging yourself and your departments to think a little bit differently? Does a program need some more money? If it does, are we just gonna pump more money into it and kind of just keep pushing in the same direction? Or are we gonna have the courage sometimes to say, we need to push in a very different direction? Right, we found that there were a lot of systems in the state that work fine, but they had been working the same way since 1985. Right? The whole world has evolved 10 times over since then, but our system hadn't. That's probably a good sign that things weren't working the best they possibly could. And that's really defines finding efficiency, building teams, right? Whether you can be the best manager in the world, the best CEO in the world, the best governor in the world, you don't put yourself surrounded with good people and good teams and allow them to put good ideas on the table, right? Everyone can be a good leader, but at the end of the day, if you're not encouraging folks to come to the table and say, all right, give me all your ideas on mental health. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your political affiliation is. I want the best and the brightest. Let's throw the ideas on there. And you don't criticize ideas, you don't bash people, but you be very open about allowing that to happen. And then you find out where you can attack the low-hanging fruit, where you can go after some more long-term strategy, things that are going to need federal help, things that are going to need more local control and local help. But you got to let all that to come to fruition and take the time to do it. It's a lot of work, it is. But you got to empower people, and when you do, you get stakeholder-driven solutions. And that's what we did for the first 2 years. When we knew we wanted to create a stronger economy, we didn't ask the legislature what to do. I didn't ask my staff what to do. We came to you. We came to businesses. We went to chambers. We went to the BIA. Brought in some of what I saw up working in the mountains regions, up in the North Country, understanding what the needs of downtown Manchester might be very different than the needs in Monadnock. We're a very small state, but we're so socioeconomically diverse, right? So you got to make sure that everyone has an input there. It's not just about the southeast part of the state. Southeast part of the state's booming. We know that. But you got to take into account all the parts of the state to make sure that all the parts, it's like a watch. Some parts are moving, spinning small and fast. Some are big and slow, right? They all move at different speeds and have different jobs. But you got to get the whole thing kind of moving together to make sure you're driving forward. And what's the result? It's phenomenal. Lowest poverty rate in the country. Finally, the lowest unemployment. Let me tell you a little secret. When I first became governor, I think the unemployment rate was like 2.8, 2.9%. 2.9%, I think it was. And I went, oh my gosh. I said, I already know what they're going to run against me when I run again, because we'll never get the unemployment rate lower than 2.9%. I mean, it's just going to go up. That's the natural course of things. You know, in my head, I'm looking at statistics, right? It's at 2.4. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's better than 4.2. I'd rather have 2.4. But now our challenge is all the businesses that are flooding in here, right? Really meeting that workforce need. So it's a great time to be here. You know, wages are way up, competition is way up, not because the government mandates anything, because we've created such a competitive atmosphere. We've really promoted ourselves, and we got Taylor Caswell here, our new Commissioner of Business and Economic Affairs, another one of my brilliant ideas, by the way, but really making sure that economic affairs, right, and economic development was a top-level position in the state, not buried in bureaucracy like it was with other administrations, top level. So when a business comes to Taylor or Michael Bergeron or Will Arvello and says, hey, we're interested in New Hampshire, he can pick the phone right up to me and say, Governor, we need some help here. We need some regulatory flexibility there. Can you go and pick up the phone and call that business? Let's go down to Massachusetts and visit these guys one-on-one, and we're working together as a team. And by doing that, we've had some really tremendous success. So what does that mean? Now we hit the budget session, the second time around. Now there's opportunity, right? This budget that we've put together, if I can pat myself on the back a little bit and pat my team on the back a little bit, it's no new taxes. We're spending more money than ever before with what we have, and we've cut taxes and we have more economic opportunity than ever before. We're doing things in mental health that haven't been even talked about in 20 years. We're doing things in opioids that have never even been thought of before. And we're challenging ourselves to say, you can't just keep throwing money the way we've been doing it. We have a lot more money with the opioid crisis. It's phenomenal. But when we went down to Washington, I said, you need to give us a big increase in our funding. And they gave us more money than any other state in the country because we convinced them we were going to do it different, that we were going to build a system that looked at rural access to care. We weren't just going to keep pounding the money into the system the same way that we had been doing it before, because the system before stunk, to be frank about it. It was not a good system. Great providers, providing great services, but you had all these barriers in place so that somebody up in the North Country was not going to drive 200 miles to downtown Manchester where all the services were. They weren't going to do that. They're not going to leave their family and their job. They wanted help, but they were toughing it out, basically. And addiction was going on and on. Why were the addiction rates in COAS 4 times higher than downtown Manchester? I kept asking that question, why? And nobody could answer it until I finally went to the North Country myself and I started talking to people, and it was right there in front of me. We weren't providing access to care. We were providing a fraction of dollars, and we weren't putting it in the right place. We convinced Washington we're going to do it differently, and long story short, we have the Doorway, which is now a phenomenal program. Only 2 months in, we're already seeing some incredible results. Concord Hospital right here in Concord is one of our hubs, and we're making sure that folks don't have to travel outside of their communities to get all-encompassing services, treatment, recovery, job placement, transitional housing, all those pieces that come with what you need to really attack this fentanyl crisis. But it's that rural access to care barrier that we've really championed ourselves, creating an infrastructure. Also understanding, I mean, we're trying to think 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Had anyone even heard of fentanyl 5 years ago? Not really. So let's understand that the drug of choice, the addiction of choice, that may come 10 years down the road, we might not even know what it is yet. So we have to design a system that is prepared for it. This whole idea that the fentanyl heroin crisis took us by surprise. No, it didn't. That's a lie. We saw this coming 10, 12 years ago. Go ask the folks at state police. They saw the data. It was creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. No one was willing to challenge the system to do something different, and we let it completely overtake us until we were underwater. Now, finally, we're turning back on it. Mental health is another issue, right? So we've put a lot of funds and resources, challenge ourselves to do it differently in opioids. Understand that the opioid crisis, mental health, DCYF, abused kids, all these programs that have been shortchanged for years, they don't live in their own silos. I'm doing the Beto thing where I'm like doing this, right? Yeah, right. My Tom Cruise moment. I'll keep it in here. But it's hard for me. I get excited. These programs don't live in silos, right? They really interchange and interact, right? It doesn't mean that everyone with a mental health issue is addicted to drugs, but there's a lot of overlap there. And so our system needs to overlap and provide services that overlap. And we need to become a government that doesn't have we have a DOE website, DES website, HHS website. When you need a service, that's not how you live your lives. That's not how individuals live their lives. We need to understand the customer, if you will, the constituent. And when we have to design a system, we have the responsibility to design a system that meets your needs and your questions as they come to you, not as our system works. Our system can work in the background like it does, but at the end of the day, we need to be front-facing, working to break down bureaucracy and all the regulatory barriers and just frankly, the customer service barriers that existed. So we're working with you with one-stop shop, right? You're a parent, your child has a need. We shouldn't have to have you go to our Department of Education website and get lost on the website for a half hour because we're talking to you like you understand how government works. It shouldn't be your job to understand how government works. It should be our job to understand how you work, how your business works, how your family works, what your kids' needs are. That's how we're fundamentally really trying to change things here. So we have a lot of funds coming in. We cut taxes, business coming in, a lot of opportunity. I focus on the opioid thing because we've really made that a strong change there, and it's just getting underway. It's very exciting. We've got a long way to go. There's no doubt. But now we have mental health. Mental health, an absolute crisis. Nobody wanted to talk about that for a long time. Last year we put forward a couple bills, early stuff, really got the ball rolling on it. It was great. We put RFPs out for community action teams, community response teams, millions of dollars. No one even bid on the contracts. So that I came back, I did exactly what the community told us to do. I said, what's going on? No one's bidding. Oh, Governor, didn't we tell you we don't have the workforce for that? Okay, let's go after workforce. So in this budget, we have some one-time money. What are we doing? We're putting $24 million into the university system with the goal of doubling the number of nurses and healthcare workers in the state, right? We're putting millions of dollars out there in some of this one-time money because the Trump tax cuts worked. There's no doubt about that. And so we have this one-time money last year, this year, even a little bit next year. If you spend those dollars on long-term government obligations, the money's not going to be there in 2 or 3 years, right? Because it's a kind of a one-time bump. And when we did that in 2006, 2007, 2008, by 2010, we had an $890 million hole because we just kept assuming government revenues would increase 10% a year. That wasn't reasonable or responsible. So we're separating out finally one-time money versus long-term money. Our revenues will keep increasing 2, 3, 4%. Our economy's strong. But this huge spike we saw last year, that's one time. That's why we're focusing on things that you saw the big story over the past couple of days, the SPU, the Secure Psychiatric Unit, a project people have been touting for 20 years saying we had to get it done, and we do, because we've got people waiting in emergency room hallways for days or weeks on end to get mental health services. We have folks in our prison that need quality mental health services that are sitting there in a prison, right? We're the only state that has this broken system, same with our county jails. So this SPU that we can build with one-time money, now's the time to do it. People have been waiting forever, and you saw my slight outrage, real outrage, but I tried to keep it fairly friendly. When the Democrats, to be a little political, said, "Oh no, it's too soon. We're going to take that money out." Are you kidding me? 20 years too late. Don't tell me it's too soon. And we're not going to get this opportunity again. Invest that money. I don't even want to borrow it. I got the cash today. I'll write you a check today. Build the dang thing. Get these people what they need. And that's the first domino to kind of fall that allows emergency room waits or people kind of housed in emergency rooms. That goes away. Kids get actually services in kid-based facilities. New Hampshire Hospital does a very good job with the kids, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't designed for kids, right? So let's get the kids in that need some mental health services in a place designed with programs for kids. Open those beds up. Take care of the Laconia DRF problem that we have. Take care of the problem we have in our prisons. All of these things start moving forward. And then you build, also in there's money for the community transitional beds that are there, for those DRF beds as well. We have the workforce piece that we're investing in. All the pieces are moving forward, right? And all of this was not designed just with like me and a couple Republicans sitting in the room. It was very bipartisan. And when I announced it as part of my budget, everybody in that room stood up and cheered. Democrats, Republicans stood up and cheered. Rainey Cushing. Rainey and I don't agree on everything or anything sometimes. He's a good guy, but he's wrong on everything. Except this. I'm kidding. I like Rainey. He's a good guy. No, but this he was really right on. And he came to me and he said, we have to make this a priority. I said, you bet. Right? This is not political. Yesterday they made it political and they pulled it out. Thank goodness by the end of the day, I think they realized how dumb that was and they said, well, we'll let the Senate fix it. Okay, so we're counting on Lou D'Alessandro and Senator Soucy, who I work with very well. I think they'll come in and they'll fix it. But the point is, when you have opportunity to change the system, don't be afraid to do it. You got to have the courage to get out there, right? And it's not about the government mandating stuff. It's about giving people choice. You've heard me say this before. I do not believe the government is here to guarantee much, but opportunity. My job is to create as many doors of opportunity for you and your kids and your businesses and schools and whatever the need may be. Whether you want to go through that door or not, live free or die, right? That's the essence of us. It's up to you. I'm going to create those doors. You decide whether you want to walk through them. I'm not there to push you through them if it's not for you, right? Why am I so adamant against this income tax? No, that was rhetorical. I think you all know why I'm so adamant against the income tax, right? A, it's a terrible idea. B, it's completely unnecessary. C, it completely takes away this thing that we call the New Hampshire Advantage. The New Hampshire Advantage is not just some catchy phrase. I think the other side of the aisle thinks that. Oh, New Hampshire Advantage sounds nice. Do you know what it is? It's being low taxes, limited government, local control, personal freedom and responsibility. Those are not just catchphrases. We do it very differently. Walk across the border to Vermont or Massachusetts or even Maine around us. They do not have those things. They wish they did. If they did, maybe they'd have 2.4% unemployment, right? I mean, really, the unemployment rate in COAS is now lower than that of the state of Massachusetts. Think about that. We're driving business in places that we never thought. We're bringing manufacturing back to the North Country. That was never thought possible. We're driving businesses from Canada into New Hampshire. We're doing it differently. When people say, well, Massachusetts is doing this, or Maine or Vermont is doing that, I say, well, that's a good sign we shouldn't be doing it. Right? There's some good practices to take there. I don't want to be so negative on them. But being different is a good thing. And it isn't by accident. It is 200 years in the making. I was talking about this, there was a rally they invited me to on Saturday, and I thought about it. I thought, we as a state are standing on the shoulders, not just standing here for our own constituents and our populations today. Let's remember, we're standing on the shoulders of the Sherm Adams, of the Mel Thompsons, right? Of the citizens who fought hard for that New Hampshire advantage and built something long term. They had pressures too to give in, to do it like Washington did it, or do it like other states did it. We have that same pressure today. They carried that responsibility. They fought that fight, which is why live free or die isn't 4 words on our license plate. It is how we live here. We are community driven, local controlled. It is an essence of who we are. Why would we give that up now? Why would we say, well, New York does it this way, we're going to copy their system for paid family medical leave? That system is about to go bankrupt, but we're going to copy it? You're nuts. When they brought the paid family leave to Bill to me last year, I said, I'm supportive. Let's find a way to do it. And they kept bringing forth a plan that had no fiscal solvency. It was going to collapse financially. And I couldn't think of a worse thing to do from a leadership position than have a system that allowed, let's say, a single mom or any mom to pay in for paid family leave. In 3 years, it's going to go bankrupt. You're shortchanging that individual. Might sound good politically in the moment, but if the system isn't there for the long term, it's not going to work. So the bill died before it even hit my desk. Did we just go away and not work on it? No. We brought everybody in, and all summer long, we took months, and we worked with the public sector, the private sector, the commissioners. And you know what? We found a way to do it that no one's ever even thought of before. And it's better. And it provides paid family leave without an income tax. It brings in the private sector. We just found a much better way to do it. So I have paid family leave in my budget. And I have no increase in taxes. And if you want in, you can pay in. And if you don't, you don't. It's that simple. So when I veto Senate Bill 1, Democrats were given, remember, I'm the first Republican governor since the Civil War to have a full Democrat legislature. Very unique position. And when given that responsibility, the Democrats' top bill, SB 1, is an income tax. When it's unnecessary, I already have the program in my budget without a tax. Why would we do that? We've compromised. We came forward and promoted a way to do it. We found a middle ground. They don't want a middle ground. Someone asked me, boy, you're in a tough position now. No, I'm not. There's such extremism on the other side and no willingness to compromise. Vetoing isn't hard. I don't like to veto. Governors don't like to say no. It'd be great to let everything pass. Yay, easy. No. It's a bigger responsibility here. Bigger than this moment. It's for the long term. Once you allow an income tax to come into the state, do you think it's going away? Nope. Do you think it'll go down? Nope. Do state taxes ever offset property taxes at the local level? Never in the history of the United States of America has that happened. They want a capital gains tax now, an income tax. Somehow they think that words capital gains aren't income. I'm sorry, they call it, what do they call the SB 1? A premium on your wages. You like that? It's not an income tax, it's a premium on your wages. Give me a break. I mean, are you even trying? Right? So look, you let that door open, it's never going to close. Look what happened in New Jersey. They promoted income tax, they promoted all these big taxes, and they said, we're going to lower your property taxes. Guess what? New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes in the country. They just went up. Right? We can't mandate that towns lower their property tax. They'll take the money and they'll spend it. But when you look at what happened in Maine, they increased taxes at the state level, provided more dollars into their education system, and not a single town lowered their property tax. In fact, there were letters from towns sent back to the governor of Maine saying, you can't tell us to lower our taxes. We're taking the money because we're allowed to take it, but we're not going to lower. We're going to spend it. Don't be fooled for a second, right? And not to mention, no one likes high property taxes, of course. But if you're going to be taxed, do it at the local level, where you have the control. You can go to town meeting. You can work with your city council. You have a lot of control over how those dollars are spent. You have much less control here in Concord. As the governor of the state of New Hampshire, as the chief executive of government, I'm telling you, I don't want any more of your money. Do not trust in the government every time. I had this group of 250 or so young people come in. I don't know why I'm telling you the story, but I will. I actually told the story the other day, but it gets a laugh, I get it, but it's actually quite poignant. 250 folks from AmeriCorps came in. I'm a big believer in service. AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, City Year, the SCA. These are kids, I say kids 18 to 22 years old. They spend a year or more of their lives really doing long-term service. It's wonderful, a lot of one-on-one programs. I'm a big believer in it. Anyways, they came in and we were talking about leadership and all that. And I said, look, I got a couple extra minutes here. Let's have a conversation. And I said, most of the younger generation right now is saying that they're more progressive, they're more into this socialism type stuff. Okay. I said, I as a young governor, I'm telling you, I don't get it. I said, I just want to have a conversation. Explain it to me. How is it that you're the first generation of 30 and unders in the 250 years of this country, you're the first generation saying, we want more government. We want more control. Right? Normally the young people are the ones saying, get off our back. Right? We don't need government. Give us our freedom. You're the first generation saying just the opposite. Why? Why would you want that? I'm the governor telling you, don't ask for more government. And the room was silent. And then a young woman in the back just said, that's a good point. And the place kind of laughed. But I said, no, seriously. I said, you guys got to think about that. Think about that, right? So it's not just Republican versus Democrat. What we're asking people to do, and especially here in New Hampshire, is understand the personal freedoms and responsibility that, I don't want to say you're granted, but that you God-givenly deserve and own. And you have to take a responsibility of that, not just I'm all Republican, I'm all Democrat. That kind of extremism is about Washington, not New Hampshire. We can't live in extremes here. Unfortunately, we're seeing that at the State House. And unfortunately, that's why I'm going to veto a lot of stuff. It's just the way it is, right? I'm happy to compromise on a lot of it, but when you see that we're fully funding the DD wait list for the next 2 years, first time in a long time we've ever even done that, that's because we've created economic prosperity and opportunity. We don't mandate a whole lot on businesses. That creates competition. Wages are through the roof. I mean, $15 an hour to start behind a register at Hobby Lobby right now. Nothing against Hobby Lobby, but $15 an hour starting. This whole idea that we're going to have a minimum wage increase. My goodness, once you open that door, you're creating a lot of problems for a lot of businesses. I know, I ran a business. In my business, we did the math. Every time it would go, if the minimum wage were to go up, and we were nervous that was going to happen, 50 cents a dollar, $1.50, $2, we had the math about how many hours we would have to cut. Or if we got to the point where you'd have to let people go. Luckily, that never happened. But there's no doubt that that would likely happen if you have an increase in the minimum wage. I was talking to the Exeter Chamber of Commerce 2 weeks ago, and a young woman stood up and said, look, I have a small store. I have 4 employees. If you let that minimum wage get increased, something's got to give. And she was more blunt than I was. She said, why don't Democrats learn how to read a balance sheet? But it's a good point, right? Businesses have a certain, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir. You have a certain amount you allocate to the labor pool, right? Very few people are making minimum wage. I think it's like a fraction of a percent actually make minimum wage for more than 6 months. And most of them are students, right? They're 20 and under. They're kind of starter jobs. They're not meant for careers. And a lot of them are even tipped, right? We have the lowest poverty rate and some of the highest wages in the country already. Why would you ask the government to mandate more on a business that's just going to suck more dollars out of the system and cut hours? In San Francisco, a recent study just came out, I think it was done by Harvard, and they looked at just the restaurant industry in San Francisco, and they looked at when they increased the minimum wage $1, every dollar that went up, hours were cut by about 7% by their workforce, because something has to give. So what happens? People have to work. People are given less hours to work. They have to take second jobs. The whole thing. It's chaos in the system. Might sound politically convenient, but boy, would it be a real problem, right? We've created a system here that doesn't need that type of government intervention and mandate. It works. It really does. Look, saying no is part of the job. If you're in the chamber, if you're part of business, you know sometimes those are tough decisions you have to make. But saying no sometimes preserves, not just for today, even though you got to take some political hits, whatever, I don't care. But it really preserves what we have today for the next 10 or 20 years. That's what this is about, allowing and incentivizing young families to want to move and work here, and businesses and startup companies and even mature companies to expand and grow here. It is working, right? Why would we want to mess up with that model now? And we're investing in programs like never before. It's all coming together and clicking. You cannot let Washington extremism come in here. That's the battle we're seeing. I know all the presidential candidates come in and the Green New Deal and all that. They're pushing Green New Deal stuff here. I hope you've seen some of the bills coming forth. It is straight out of the Green New Deal. It is dangerous stuff, right? Not just nationally, but here in the state, some of it would be just catastrophic. Some of these taxes, the carbon taxes, the capital gains taxes, the income taxes. It's over $1 billion of taxes that they've proposed. Hey, if you want to be like Massachusetts, I guess, look, that's your prerogative. You can vote that way if you want. But we're different, and that should be a source of pride for all of us. 603 pride, it means something. All right, now I'm getting passionate. I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to make sure you guys can ask some questions. And again, anything I haven't touched upon, a lot of the infrastructure money, the cash we're sending back to cities and towns, the roads and bridge money we're sending back, the one-time funds that we're pushing, we put money into Special Olympics. Did you see what happened nationally when they talked about taking money out of Special Olympics? Yeah, that didn't go so well. And give Trump credit. Within 2 days, he said, no, we're putting that money back in. Yeah, you know what is going to be voted on today? Guess who proposed money for Special Olympics for the first time and maybe ever in the state? And guess who's going to try to vote to take all that money out today? The Democrats. I'm floored. City Year, we're putting money in. Volunteer New Hampshire, we're putting money in. We have this financial opportunity to really give money to our nonprofits who are the backbone of our service industry in the state. And they're going to take the money out for political reasons. I dare you. Really. That gets me angry. Because those people deserve it. Right? Those organizations deserve it. They are on the front lines. This isn't about bigger government. It's about supporting the organizations that provide the backbone of community service in this state. Right? You're not going to get this opportunity very often. And my message is let's not blow it. Let's make some tough decisions, make sure we're standing strong, standing true, and making sure that business and families really come first. Thank you, Tim. We'll take questions or whatever you want. If you don't ask now, you're going to be lying in bed tonight and being like, I had that guy on the stage, I should have asked him. Yeah. Yes, sir. It looks like you got a loud voice.
We work closely, which is well represented. We work closely with State Workplace. They had a survey a couple years ago that showed that 20% of young professionals have 0 friends in the state of New Hampshire. Bill calls it the friendless kid. I know you have the Governor's Millennial Advisory Council. So I'm curious, what are some of the steps you're taking to help retain and to attract young professionals so they don't all end up going lost?
Great question. So a couple of how do we get young people to come in here? And look, last year for the first time in like over a decade, young people started finally moving back in here. So we're starting to make a little bit of headway. First is housing. You need to provide realistic, affordable housing, not traditional Section 8 housing. There's a place for that, of course, but I'm talking about if you want to buy a starter home for $200,000, if you want to have an apartment for $1,000, $1,200 a month. Certain towns are getting it and certain towns aren't. Rochester, Londonderry, Derry to an extent. Claremont is building up their infrastructure. Certain places are really making those investments. Certain places aren't, and I'm working hard with those towns to let them understand that if they want business to keep coming in and thriving, they need to make those investments. I mean, there was a town, I won't say what town it was, but it rhymed with Redford. There was a petition going around saying we're going to ban apartments in our town, no more apartment buildings. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. God, don't get me wrong, I love you, Bedford, but you want BAE to expand in Manchester, which they're going to do. You want Hitchner to expand, you want Lonza to expand, you want ARMI, what Dean Kamen is doing in Manchester, to expand. Bedford, you got to make that the opportunity there for the young people, and young being, let's say the 20 to 32, 34-year-olds is really what we're focusing on a bit, to make sure that they have a place to live, whether it's an apartment or a condo. I mean, you can build really good stuff fairly cheaply now. And the jobs are high, fairly high paying right now. We have a lot of wage opportunity. So housing is a first big piece. The other big piece, when kids are coming out of college, when you come out of school, there's two things going on. Number one, a lot of young people say, I want to go to the big city. I want to go to downtown Boston. That's a cultural center. I want to be there. I got to be honest, we can't compete with that. And we shouldn't try in a way. Boston's great. I was there for many years right after school. It's a great experience. But what we're really going after is, let's say, the 27, 28 to 35-year-olds. When they're ready to invest in a home and raise a family and pay taxes and raise kids and think about schools, when you're ready to make those decisions, we want to be there for you. So the other piece, and that's where the housing piece kind of comes in, and promoting school choice and things like that. So we want to have a lot of flexibility. The other piece, though, is for the students who are coming out of school and do want to stay here, we need to make it easy, and we can incentivize them. My budget has a $33 million loan assistance program. Huge opportunity. We dabbled with this with a $5 million program for Army in Manchester, ARMI. We have a small program that we've doubled the amount of money for nurses and healthcare workers to help pay down your debt. We know we have a high debt load. Do you know last year was the first year in a long time the average student debt in New Hampshire went down? It finally started going down. Well, we can really accelerate that. We have a $33 million program that, and not costing taxpayers a dollar. We're basically just reusing how the universities basically use their trust funds. And it's a great idea. We're going to incentivize people to stay and work here and allow employers to use some of that money to help pay down your debt. Programs like that. And then the last thing is, and in some ways it's the most important, when you're in high school, are we giving you choice? Are we giving you options? School choice is not public versus private. That is so old school. School choice is when you're a ninth grader, as an example, are we giving you and your student a pathway at Concord High that is going to work for you? Why is it that until recently you couldn't even get into your CTE, your career schools, until your junior and senior year? I want a freshman to say, yeah, I want to take computer coding. I want to work in a wood shop. I want to be an electrician. I want to do micro welding. I want to do childcare. I want to do nursing. All these are programs in those CTEs. I want freshmen to have that opportunity. That's school choice. Why am I so adamant about robotics programs in schools? Because robotics provides first soft skills that are missing a little bit in this generation right now, right? Team building, compromising, working together, problem solving, and giving young people, especially young women, who really we want to promote to get into the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, let's give them the choice of these types of new programs, open that door of opportunity for them that allows them to stay here. Then you look at what we're doing with community colleges, integrating with business, hardwiring kids. No longer are we waiting till someone graduates a four-year college at 22 to say, what are you ready to do with your life? I want those interviews basically happening in your junior and your freshman and sophomore year. And if you're a nurse, you're working in the hospitals, you're building relationships. And you know about and you're interacting with those programs that can help pay down your debt, and it's just a nice seamless transition, right? So workforce really starts, if you want to it really starts in kindergarten, which is why I'm so adamant about it, and I really believe that. When you create those opportunities there, it can be a seamless pathway through middle school, through high school, and then whatever you want to do at 18, I want you to have workforce-ready skills. A diploma is not enough. We used to think that. That's old school thinking. Sounds politically convenient, but a diploma is not enough. I want you to have workforce-ready skills with all those options available at your fingertips. That's the fun. I get pushback a lot on almost all that, by the way. A lot of pushback politically on almost all that. But it's about your individual freedom and your opportunity to stay and work here. And if we create that opportunity and we can incentivize it, sky's the limit. Sorry for the long answer, but there's a lot going on there. Yes. Hi.
Hello, my name is Emma Barber. I'm currently a senior at Bishop Brady High School. I'm curious to know if there are any plans that have to do with the current rising problem of nicotine addiction among youth, like relative to vaping and cigarettes.
Vaping, cigarettes, nicotine. Yes. I'm a big believer that, look, Juul is going to be legal, vaping is going to be legal. But we don't really have a regulatory infrastructure for it, and we need to bring that into the regulatory infrastructure. One of the most important things around electric cigarettes and juuling and vaping is, frankly, the messaging right now. Messaging to parents. I got a 14-year-old, I got a 13-year-old. I would bet that half the teachers in my kids' school don't really understand what Juul and vaping is. They really don't. We had issues in high schools where kids were getting caught vaping in the bathroom, and the teachers would be like, look, stop, cut it out, get back to class. If you had been caught smoking in the bathroom, you would have been suspended. But we're not making that that's nicotine in there. Wake up. Sometimes it's marijuana and THC and very high levels of THC. It's a whole new ballgame out there. So the number one thing we have to do is educate and make sure both teachers and parents understand what is going on, how to identify it, the fact that they look like USBs. I mean, a lot of you know this, but let me tell you, a lot of you don't. And I'm just learning about it myself, to be frank. We have some towns that are, I'm not for raising the smoking age to 21. When you look at the data, it doesn't necessarily prevent people from smoking at an early age. A lot of towns are doing that, and that's up to them to do. I'm not trying to intertwine this with the marijuana thing, but I got to tell you, it is absolutely intertwined with marijuana. How can you have towns that want to raise the smoking age to 21, and that's fine, but also say we're going to legalize marijuana? What a horribly confusing message that we're sending to our kids. It makes no sense. Oh, and by the way, we have the biggest drug crisis that we've ever had, and it's the number one public health issue we have today and will have going forward. What are you thinking? So the messaging has gotten so backwards on a lot of this stuff. We got to get our priorities straight, right? We decriminalized marijuana. We made sure you're not going to jail for marijuana. You know, you're not going to go to prison for having a joint or whatever it is. That's decriminalizing. You want to go to full-blown recreational marijuana? Holy cow. Go ask the governor of Massachusetts, Vermont, or Maine how that's going for them. It isn't good. But despite what you see, it isn't good. The regulatory frameworks are a mess. The rules are all over the place. They have no idea how to enforce it on the highways with impaired driving, right? So I'm going a little bigger than your answer, but all of this comes into play. Let's understand what is out there, and let's understand that the juuling and vaping is not something you just see with adults. It is really intertwined with what our kids are getting involved in. And there's a complete overlap there with the messaging and the education that really has to go on about, the impacts of this. Hi.
My name is Lana Brobeck. I am CEO and founder of Sickle Americas. We are a neurotechnology startup in Concord. And one of the things that you mentioned was about the health system and how segregated the services are. For us, a small business, the way that I feel about the system is that New Hampshire has so many resources to help us, like growing and starting and so on. But these resources are also very segregated, which makes it really hard to understand what we have access to and what can we get to assist us growing and establishing business here. Is there anything on those lines to assist simplifying and trying?
Yeah, so the question really goes around, frankly, better customer service and access to information and resources. We have a lot of programs in the state, especially around healthcare, that can help a lot of people, but how would you know, right? How would you know as a parent? How would you know as a business owner? It's really hard. We're rebuilding. I'm a big believer. I don't think it's all about just websites and apps, but we're rebuilding our technology, again, for more of a one-stop shop. So as a parent or a business, you can say, I need information on healthcare programs in this state. And it's not telling you where to register your car, right? Because that actually happened once, no joke, because our systems were so broken. But it's really a system that can answer the question like you're going to ask it, if that's a better way to do it. Also, we just trying to be better on our customer service. Pick up the phone, right? Don't get people lost in what do they call it? Button limbo, right? Where press 1 for this, press 2 for that. We have people, pick up the phone, answer the phone, talk to an individual so that they can get better access to information. We have a lot of new programs coming up. We have a lot of old programs that were outdated that we're kind of evolving into new things. Getting that information out is probably what the government does worst, right? We have good programs, but being great communicators is tough. We're getting better. I don't have an easy answer for you other than at least the website and access to information. I think it will, over the next 12 months, is going to really evolve. But don't be afraid to pick up the phone, especially in healthcare. There are customer service lines at Health and Human Services, or if it's an insurance issue, call the insurance department. Insurance department's great, by the way. They do a great job. HHS is too. Jeff Myers and his team do a very good job. God bless HHS. I mean, they're managing, 40% of a $13 billion budget. It's a lot. It really is. But we've really tried to promote just simply better customer service on the front end. Hi.
Hey, I was wondering how we're doing on bridges.
Bridges. It's like I'm throwing softballs out there. This is great. I'm all about bridges. I really am. I love it. Look, because infrastructure, right? If you're going to be a travel and tourism state, if you're going to be a manufacturing state with trucks, you better have the bridge issue taken care of. You saw, unfortunately, what happened with that bridge collapse. I guess it was yesterday or 2 days ago. It's just horrific. We have some of the oldest and worst red-listed bridges in the country. Last year, when we had extra surplus money, we didn't put it in more big government. We sent first $35 million back to cities and towns for roads and bridges, for municipal roads and bridges, right? Half the bridges in the state are owned by your towns. The state, unfortunately, we don't pay to fix those. You need the municipalities to do it. And as a kind of a means of property tax relief, we sent cash, and everyone got a check. Then when we found out we had more money, we did $20 million more to strictly state-controlled red-listed bridges. And those programs started, we basically accelerated the 10-year highway plan just around red-listed bridges last year. There's a lot more work to do. You'd be shocked at how many bridges in the state are 75 years old or older. It's amazing. Just a top priority of the 10-year highway plan. This coming fall, all the executive counselors around the state will hold about 25 public meetings. Go to those meetings, talk to them about the bridges. There's economic opportunity when it comes to investing in roads and bridges. You definitely have to do it. As an aside too, I'm putting a lot of money into dams, both state and municipal dams. They are in really rough shape and they cause a massive danger, frankly. We just haven't put money in them before. So again, that's kind of that when you have surplus funds, invest in the infrastructure, something that you can, rely on down the road. We won't necessarily have that opportunity again, but that's where we're going. A couple more? Oh.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
I'd love to be the one to ask it.
You're the boss.
As long as we're talking about roads and bridges, there's a plan to expand 93 going through Bow and Concord. It has definitely got our attention, and the current plan does not seem to be in the best interest of the capital city. I just want
It's
to
not.
What your thoughts?
I'm not a fan of it. So great question. It's Stickney Ave, right? So a couple things. I put money in my budget to first, let's get rid of those horrible Stickney Ave buildings, right? Can we all agree on that? And we have put money in the budget to accelerate that. I worked with Jim Boulay very directly and said, let's clear these things out and privatize that land, because that land should be privatized. The state isn't using it for anything. You should use it. Huge economic opportunity for the city. Secondly, I saw this plan for the interchange over there. And I believe, I don't know where you guys are. I think the highway needs to be expanded. Think we need to deal with the S-curve. There's no doubt about that. What DOT has proposed for that, really what is right now like one of the busiest intersections in Concord, I don't get it. I'm just going to be blunt. I'm not seeing it. I'm getting the sense that a lot of folks in Concord would agree that we need a lot of work to do here. Do we need to expand it? Absolutely. Do we need to do it right and keep it really viable? Absolutely. I guess the short answer there is we're going to keep working with the folks in the city and DOT to get it right. And I think there's a pathway there. I really do. What I saw, I'm not a big fan of. But we'll keep working on it. And I think when you sell that land, and if we do it in the right way, when we privatize it, we'll allow that process to really get accelerated. Look, I'm not here to bash on DOT, but how long has this been talked about? Exactly. Look, it would be easy for me to take a step back and say, we're going to help you get exactly what you need. Thanks for coming by. No, I don't work like that. I could have done that with mental health. I could have done it with opioids. I could have done it with kindergarten. I could have done it with businesses. No. Sometimes you've got to say government working at the speed of government is not good enough. My fear is that if we don't start tackling this thing pretty aggressively, you're going to be asking the next governor years and years from now. But really, it's going to be an issue like, where are we going? People tend, if you don't focus on things, they'll take the money and they'll reprioritize. I'm going to use it. Let me use a quick example. It's not a DOT example, but it's a Concord example. Last year, I put forth $30 million for safe school infrastructure. Okay? Clear need. And over 400 schools in this state got grants. The state had previously, for the last 200 years, had put in $0 into safe school infrastructure. We put in $30 million, unprecedented amount. And we made it a fast process. All the schools in the state came forward, and Concord got a lot of money, nearly $1 million. And I don't know, a lot of people in this room very well may disagree with me. People wanted to use that money for the heating system and things like that, right? Just because there's money out there, do not take it for granted that it's going to be used exactly as it was deemed. And I had to fight hard and push back against some of your senators and representatives, frankly, that wanted to take that money and use it for something other than safe schools, when we know that is not just a state but a national priority. And it went into paying for cameras and lockdown doors and really cool stuff over at the high school. Again, things that otherwise your property taxes would have had to pay for. We were there with the check and writing the grant. But that's an example of we moved fast, we got it done, we stayed focused. This is one of those things where I'm trying to get the state to move fast, get it done, and stay focused. Keep the energy on the problem. If you take a step back, it's easy not to come back to the issue again. You're going to let government do what government does. Left to its own devices, government falls back to those silos. They're good people doing good work, but it's easy to go in and just focus on 8 to 5. Just keep doing it the same way. We'll get around to it when we get around to it. No way. We are succeeding in this state, as communities, as businesses, because we don't accept that anymore. And we shouldn't. And you shouldn't either. So we're going to be right there with you. We're going to push this issue with the DOT, try to get the folks back in the room. Yeah, the plan isn't to be done for 6 or 7, to actually go to construction 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be getting it right today. Because when we get it right today, it gives all of you confidence, understanding. The city can now budget appropriately to build around that infrastructure. The government has such a hard time understanding that one of the best things you can give a business is confidence in what the plan is. Not just that it's a plan for or against them, but when a business can plan based on your plan and there's security in that, it helps everything move forward, right? That's how businesses think. They think long-term. You should demand the same of government. But if we can get this stuff moving fast, keep our eye on the ball, get you guys an answer and a solution, not you guys, us too. I mean, I use that intersection every day, right? You mess that thing up, you're going to create such a problem. So we're going to make sure that they're on the forefront, not just, giving you the, yeah, we'll get around to it. Not good enough. You shouldn't accept that. Keep us accountable. I don't want to be that guy that says, don't trust the government. You can trust, but verify. Constantly. Really. Your senators, your representatives. Keep them accountable. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to be a little bit pushy about my budget. Look at what they're going to strip out of that budget today. The Democrats were given the responsibility and opportunity of leading the legislature with a Republican governor for the first time in 150 years. Look at what their priorities are and look at where they're pulling the funding. From City Year, from Special Olympics, from volunteer programs, from the university system, right? We're going to develop a new director of early childhood development and education in this state. No, we're taking that money too. We're going to double the number of nurses with $24 million investment into the university system. We're going to put $9 million over in Keene State to upgrade their new optics programs, which is really exciting stuff. There's a lot of new high-tech manufacturing, building around the workforce for tomorrow. Nope, we're taking that money too. I went to Keene. Let me tell you, I didn't win Keene. Believe it or not, it's more Democrat than Concord. Come on, making a joke. But really, and I said to them, all your representatives here are strong Dems, great, fine, and your senators are strong Dems. They're pulling the money out of Keene State. And they said, really? Yes. My point is, look at what is going on and hold me, the executive council, the legislature, the Senate, hold us accountable. Pick up the phone. Demand better. Demand better. You not just you've earned it, you deserve it. It's your God-given right. It's what New Hampshire is really about, accountability in the system. That's why I have to get elected every 2 years. It's hard, but it's a great system. You guys, the people, have all the power. It's a wonderful thing. Use it. Use it. Thank you guys very much for letting me come. It was fun. Thank you.
Our governor certainly does not lack passion. I can say that with confidence. Thank you so much, Governor Sununu. That was very inspiring and very informative, and we love having you here. Thank you again, Lincoln Financial, for your support and for your sponsorship, and I wish you all a great rest of the week.